In a world of complex choices and challenging decisions, selecting the right leaders can shape the future of organizations, communities, and even the nation. But how do we make this crucial choice? Today, we'll explore how the philosophical framework of deontology can guide us in identifying and selecting ethical, effective leaders.
Before we dive into leadership selection, let's understand what deontology actually is. Deontology is an ethical theory that judges actions based on whether they fulfill one's duties and obligations, rather than on their outcomes or consequences. The term comes from the Greek words deon, meaning duty, and logos, meaning study or science. Unlike consequentialist theories that focus on results, deontology emphasizes the inherent rightness or wrongness of actions themselves. The most famous deontological theory comes from the 18th century philosopher Immanuel Kant, who believed that moral actions should be guided by universal principles that could apply to everyone, everywhere, at all times. This is his famous categorical imperative. When applying deontology to leadership selection, four key principles emerge. Number 1. Universal rules. Would you want everyone to be selected for leadership in the same way? Does the candidate uphold universal standards? Number 2. Human dignity. Does the potential leader treat others as ends in themselves, never merely as means to an end? Number 3. Duty and obligation. Does the candidate understand and fulfill their duties to stakeholders, regardless of personal cost? Number 4. Character and intention. Is the leader's motivation based on a sense of duty rather than personal gain? Let's explore how these principles can guide our leadership selection processes. Kant's first formulation of the categorical imperative states that we should act only according to that maxim, by which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. In leadership selection, this means establishing clear, consistent criteria that you would want applied universally. Ask yourself, would these selection processes be fair if everyone used it? Are the standards being applied consistently across all candidates? Does the candidate themselves believe in and apply universal standards? A leader who makes exceptions for themselves or their allies fails this test. Look for candidates who demonstrate consistency between their words and actions, applying the same standards to themselves that they would to others. Kant's second formulation states that we should treat humanity never merely as a means to an end, but always at the same time as an end. When selecting a leader, observe how they treat others. Do they view team members as valuable in themselves or merely as tools for achieving goals? Do they respect others' autonomy and voice? Do they consider the impact of decisions on all stakeholders? Leaders who manipulate, deceive, or exploit others for organizational gain are violating this principle, even if it produces short-term positive results. Look for candidates who demonstrate respect for human dignity in all their interactions. Deontology emphasizes duty over convenience. When selecting a leader, consider, does the candidate recognize and fulfill their obligations even when difficult? Do they prioritize responsibilities over personal interest? Have they demonstrated commitment to ethical standards even under pressure? A leader who abandons commitments when they become inconvenient isn't guided by a sense of duty. The deontological approach favors leaders who demonstrate consistent commitment to their obligations.
In deontological ethics, the intention behind an action matters greatly. A leader might achieve good results through manipulative means or might have the right intentions but face unexpected setbacks. When evaluating leadership candidates, consider what motivates their actions. Do they act from a sense of duty rather than self interest? Is their decision making guided by ethical principles? Look for consistent patterns that reveal character. Single actions can be misleading, but pattern over time reveal a candidate's true ethical framework. How can we apply these principles practically? Here's a deontological framework for leadership selection. 1. Establish universal criteria. Define clear, consistent standards you would want applied in all similar situations. 2. Evaluate track record on respect. How has the candidate treated others, especially those with less power? 3. Assess commitment to duties. Examine how they've handled conflicts between personal interest and obligation. 4. Scrutinize motivation. Look beyond results to understand why they make the choices they do. And last, consider ethical consistency. Do they maintain principles even when circumstances change? It's important to acknowledge that a purely deontological approach has limitations. It might not adequately address practical outcomes and results. Duties can sometimes conflict with one another. The approach may seem rigid in complex, nuanced situations. Many effective leadership selection processes combine deontological principles with considerations of consequences, virtues, and practical skills. The key is ensuring that duty and ethical principles remain central to the evaluation. Let's consider the situation. Imagine you're selecting between two candidates. Candidate A has impressive results but has repeatedly broken promises and used questionable tactics. Candidate B has a solid but less spectacular track record, consistently upholds commitments, and treats all stakeholders with respect. A purely results-based approach might favor candidate A, but deontology would raise serious concerns about their methods and character. Candidate B demonstrates the duty orientation that suggests more ethical leadership over time.
Choosing leaders through a deontological lens means looking beyond charisma and short-term results to evaluate candidates based on their commitments to principle, duties, and human dignity. While no approach to leadership selection is perfect, incorporating these deontological principles help us identify leaders who will act ethically not just when it's convenient, but when it matters most. By selecting leaders who understand and embrace their duties, we build organizations and communities where ethical considerations guide our collective journey forward. Thank you for watching. Remember, the leaders we choose shape not just what we achieve, but who we become along the way.